Week 35 Day 1. Parable moralistic story. Since the expression, sour grapes, is the gist of a famous parable about a fox, who couldn't get what he wanted. Since parable noun see a short simple story, which teaches or explains an idea, especially a moral or religious idea. Whimsical, humorous, witty. Since what one person finds whimsical, the other may find asinine, fool. Since whimsical, adjective, unusual and strange in a way that might be amusing or annoying. A whimsical tale despite his kindly, sometimes whimsical air. He was a shrewd observer of people. Whimsically, adverb whimsicality. Sense noun euformal, lampoon, ridicule. Since Jonathan Swift was never reticent, reserved to lampoon the egotist, in order to bring him down with alacrity. Since lampoon noun see a piece of writing, a drawing, etc. which criticizes in an amusing way a famous person or a public organization, allowing their bad qualities to be seen and making them seem stupid. The magazine is famed for its merciless political lampoons. Lampoon, verb to countenance, tolerate, approve. Sense, if we want to live in a salubrious healthy milieu, we cannot countenance the noisome fumes that are deleterious to health. Sense countenance, face noun see or euformal, the appearance or expression of someone's face. He was of noble countenance. Sense countenance, approve, a verb to formal, to find acceptable, to approve of or give support to. The school will not countenance bad behavior. Countenance noun euformal, we will not lend countenance, approval to any kind of terrorism. Sanctimonious, hypocritically religious. Sense we should eschew or sanctimonious, fade away with pretext. Sense sanctimonious, adjective, formal, disapproving, acting as if morally better than others. Sanctimonious, religious leaders preaching about morality. Sanctimoniously, adverb, formal, disapproving. Sanctimoniousness noun euformal, disapproving, to pull up stakes, to quit a place. Since he could no longer rule the roost or get the lion's share, so he pulled up stakes and moved on. A modern Aesop, the telling of a story in simple terms that has an inherently important message, is a venerable, respectable, valuable art form. The parable may be found teaching a moral lesson in the Bible. Aesop is an incontrovertible master of the fable. This story form is far from antiquated, as shown by the whimsical approach to life taken by the modern Aesop, James Thurber. His stories lampoon the strange behavior of his fellow men. Thurber seems unable to countenance the ideas that permeate our society regarding the rules by which we should live. Least of all is he able to accept the sanctimonious notion that some people promulgate that good always wins out against evil. Thurber's stories often take an exactly opposite didactic point of view. Week 35 Day 2. Equanimity, calmness, self-control. Since these turbulent, troubled times require a leader who does not go into a capricious peak but rather one who faces acrimonious criticism with equanimity. Sense equanimity noun euformal, calmness and self-control, especially after a shock or disappointment or in a difficult situation. He received the news of his mother's death with remarkable equanimity. 3 years after the tragedy, she has only just begun to regain her equanimity. Effrontery, boldness. Sense do you have the effrontery to take that supercilious pride and facetious reckless attitude toward something as sinister as this? Sense effrontery noun euformal, extreme rudeness and lack of ability to understand that your behavior is not acceptable to other people. He was silent all through the meal, and then had the effrontery to complain that I looked bored. Nonentity, one of no importance. Sense he was a precocious, premature youngster, but he soon reached the nadir of his career, lost all of his prestige, and became a nonentity. Sense nonentity noun 1c, disapproving, a person without strong character, ideas or influence. She was once a political nonentity, but has since won a formidable reputation as a determined campaigner. 2u, when something or someone is unknown because they lack any strong character, ideas or influence. This collection of essays is saved from nonentity by the stature of the contributors. Flabbergasted, astounded. Sense when the judge exonerated the charlatan, we were all flabbergasted. Flabbergast, verb to often passive, informal, to shock someone, usually by telling them something they were not expecting. He was flabbergasted when we told him how cheap it was. Flabbergasted, adjective, informal, when they announced her name, the winner just sat there, flabbergasted. Debacle, ruin, collapse. Sense the fortuitous appearance of a relief column permitted an adroit escape from the imminent debacle. Sense debacle. Sense noun see a complete failure, especially because of bad planning and organization. The collapse of the company was described as the greatest financial debacle in US history. To raise Cain to cause trouble, make a fuss sense, when he found he was left holding the bag, he decided to raise Cain. Modernizing a parable, Thurber punctures in an incisive way the platitudes that come from stories handed down through the generations. These old saws are accepted by everyone. One such tale is about a tortoise, who had read in an ancient book that a tortoise had beaten fight against a hare in a race. The sage old tortoise construed this story to mean that he could outrun a hare. With equanimity he hunted for a hare and soon found one. "Do you have the effrontery to challenge me?" asked the incredulous hare. "You are a nonentity," he scoffed at the tortoise. A course of 50 feet was set out. The other animals gathered round the sight. At the sound of the gun they were off. When the hare crossed the finish line, the flabbergasted tortoise had gone approximately 8 3/4 inches. The moral Thurber draws from this debacle for the tortoise: a new broom may sweep clean, but never trust an old saw. Week 35, Day 3. Vivacious, lively, gay. Since they were struck by the anomaly of one twin who was phlegmatic, while the other was vivacious. Since vivacious, adjective approving a vivacious person, especially a woman or girl, is attractively energetic and enthusiastic, he brought along his wife, a vivacious blonde, some 20 years his junior. Vivaciously, adverb approving vivacity, noun you approving gaunt, thin, haggard. Since women strive for the slender and ochre and up to date gaunt look. Since gaunt, adjective one very thin, especially because of illness or hunger, her face was gaunt and gray. To literary, bare and unattractive, the house looked gaunt and unwelcoming. Gauntness, noun you mean appearance, bearing. Since she had a mien of humility, but it was only a fade. Since mean, noun see literary, a person's appearance, especially the typical expression on their face. His aristocratic mien and smart clothes singled him out. Hirsute, hairy. Since you may have discerned that it is no longer the latest vogue among boys to permit their faces to become hirsute. Since hirsute, adjective literary or humorous, having a lot of hair, especially on the face or body. Refute, prove wrong or false. Since he did not waste time trying to refute an irrelevant and tortuous argument. Null. Since refute, verb t, formal, to say or prove that a person, statement, opinion, etc. is wrong or false. To refute a person, theory, argument, claim. Refutation, noun c or u, form, to leave no stone unturned, to try one's best, to make every effort. Since you're from Missouri, I'll leave no stone unturned to convince you. Things have changed. Thurber modernizes an old story that everyone has read or heard. It has to do with a nefarious wolf who kept a vigil in an ominous forest until a little girl came along carrying a basket of food for her grandmother. With alacrity, this vivacious youngster told the wolf the address to which she was going. Hungry and gaunt, the wolf rushed to the house. When the girl arrived and entered, she saw someone in bed wearing a nightcap and a nightgown. While the figure was dressed like her grandmother, the little girl surmised, guess with only a perfunctory glance, that it didn't have the old lady's mien. She approached and became cognizant of the hirsute face of the wolf. She drew a revolver from her purse, and shot the interloper dead. Thurber arrives at a moral for this story that anyone would find difficult to refute: it is not so easy to fool little girls nowadays as it used to be. Week 35, Day 4. Pensive, thoughtful, reflective. Since the fervid marriage proposal made the shy girl pensive. Since pensive, adjective, thinking in a quiet way, often with a serious expression on your face, she became withdrawn and pensive, hardly speaking to anyone. Pensively, adverb, he gazed pensively at the glass in front of him, lost in thought. Whet, stimulate, stir up. Since you cannot whet his desire for the theater with dubious histrionic sense. Whet, interest, verb, whet someone's appetite, to increase someone's interest in and desire for something, usually by giving them a small experience of it. I've read an excerpt of the book on the web and it's whetted my appetite. That one kiss had whetted his appetite. Since whet, sharpened, verb ttt, old use, to sharpen the blade of a knife or similar tool. He whetted his knife against the stone. Stupor, daze, insensible condition. Since he was in such a stupor as a result of the accident that this precluded, avoid, hinder his hearing. My condolence. Since stupor, noun c, usually singular, a state in which a person is almost unconscious and their thoughts are very unclear. He was lying under the table in a drunken stupor. Wince draw back, flinch sense the hostile rebuke made the usually phlegmatic boy wince sense wince verb I, to show pain briefly and suddenly in the face, often moving the head back at the same time. Did I hurt you? I thought I saw you wince. It makes me wince even thinking about eye operations. Wince noun C usually singular she gave a wince, as the nurse put the needle in. Clique commonplace phrase sense, if you juxtapose one clique with another, you often get completely opposite lessons about life sense clique noun C or you a comment, that is very often made and is therefore not original and not interesting. My wedding day and I know it's a clique was just the happiest day of my life. Clique D adjective he made some clique D remark about the birth of his first child completely changing his life sense clique written adjective containing a lot of clique S. A clique written speech tongue in one's cheek not to be sincere sense John's father surely had his tongue in his cheek, when he told his son to go sow wild oats, and to kick over the traces at his kindergarten party. Another surprise Thurber's stories are written in a jocose joke manner, but they contain enough serious matter to make one pensive. He tells of some builders, who left a pane of glass standing upright in a field near a house they were constructing. A goldfinch flew across the field, struck the glass and was knocked inert. He rushed back and divulged to his friends, that the air had crystallized. The other birds derided sneer at him, said he had become irrational, and gave a number of reasons for the accident. The only bird who believed the goldfinch was the swallow. The goldfinch challenged the large birds, to follow the same path he had flown fly. This challenge served to whet their interest, and they agreed with gusto. Only the swallow abjured gave up formally. The large birds flew together and struck the glass, they were knocked into a stupor. This caused the astute swallow to wince with pain. Thurber drew a moral that is the antithesis of the clique we all accept, he who hesitates is sometimes saved. Week 35 Day 5. Beam Me Up, Scotty. In 1966 a television program appeared that quickly established itself as the most successful science fiction series, moved on to become 6 popular films, and continues in reruns to be seen somewhere in this country every night of the year. This original series, Star Trek, became so popular that there are huge fan clubs across the country and the stars of the original series are mobbed when they make personal appearances. What makes this form of science fiction so popular? Some may say that each story of the future is a parable showing us our own world through a presentation of other worlds. There are those who would refute this analysis, and argue that it is the odd characters, the hirsute aliens, who attract us. We watch with equanimity as worlds battle, knowing it will turn out well in the end. After many years and many TV episodes and movies, Star Trek and its successors continue to whet our appetite, and bring excitement to our screens. As long as space remains an almost total mystery, the unexplained will capture our imaginations.